Have you ever noticed something strange in the world of modern dating? That despite what everyone says, the men who truly capture a woman's heart often aren't the richest or the flashiest. They don't lead with money, and yet somehow they still leave a lasting impression. Why? Because there's a truth hiding behind the noise, one that rarely gets spoken. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're exposing one of the most stubborn myths in relationships, the idea that women only care about a man's money. It's been repeated so often, people start to treat it like gospel. But here's the Stoic truth. While financial stability can open a door, it's never what keeps someone walking through it. Because when you look beneath the surface, beneath the social media, the flexing, and the assumptions, you'll find something much deeper. Women are biologically and psychologically wired to respond to certain qualities. Not the kind you can buy, but the kind you build. Traits like presence, integrity, direction, emotional composure, quiet confidence. And here's the powerful part. Every one of these traits is within your reach, regardless of your background, regardless of your bank account. These aren't tricks. They're not gimmicks. They're the real foundation of masculine strength, and they matter more than you think. In this video, we're going to break down 6 powerful traits that women secretly value far more than money. And by the end, you won't just understand what those traits are, you'll understand why they work and how to cultivate them in your own life. So, if you've ever wondered why certain men effortlessly attract incredible women without ever chasing approval or showing off, stay with me. You're about to find out. Part 1. High-value presence. So stay with me until the end, because truly understanding these 6 traits might not just change the way women see you, it could completely change how you see yourself. Let's dive in. Trait number 1, high-value presence. There's a certain kind of man who never has to raise his voice to be felt. He walks into a room, and the energy shifts not with arrogance, not with noise, but with something far more instinctive. He doesn't need to prove anything. His mere presence speaks louder than words ever could. And women sense it before they can even articulate why. This is deeper than attraction. It's biological recognition. You see, at the core of female psychology lies something ancient and automatic, a drive shaped by evolution. Not to find the flashiest man in the room, but to feel who is safest, steadiest, strongest in spirit. Women don't consciously scan for these things, but their instincts do. And when a man carries himself with grounded confidence, with calm that doesn't shake, and self-respect that doesn't beg for approval, triggers something primal, he becomes biologically magnetic. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't posture or pretend. His calm speaks louder than swagger ever could. His direction is clear, his posture steady, his tone measured. And all of this quietly tells the world and her, I can lead, I can protect, I don't flinch under pressure. That's the kind of presence that makes a woman lean in without knowing why. She might notice how you move without hurry, how you hold your ground without confrontation, how you respond without rushing to please. These subtle signals, they cut through noise. They speak to something older than words. And make no mistake, you don't need to be rich, loud, or dressed in designer clothes to project that presence. But you do need to carry yourself like a man who commands respect, especially among other men. Because that's where real value begins. In how you're seen by those who understand strength when they see it. And here's the secret. A high-value presence doesn't beg for attention. It draws it in. That kind of presence isn't based on looks or lines or gimmicks. It's deeper. It's rooted in composure, conviction, and an internal clarity that doesn't depend on outside approval. That's why some men are remembered long after they've left the room. They weren't loud, they weren't flashy, but they were unforgettable. Because in a world obsessed with appearances, a man who embodies quiet strength becomes rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. So remember this: be the man she can feel even in silence. Because when a man leads with direction, grounded energy, and quiet confidence, he doesn't have to impress anyone. He becomes the kind of presence that lingers, that resonates, that no woman easily forgets. Part 2. Stoic Composure. Now let's talk about the second trait: Stoic composure, rooted in sociability, social proof, and quiet influence. There's something uniquely magnetic about a man who moves through a room with calm confidence and out seeking the spotlight, but somehow becoming the center of it anyway. He doesn't need to dominate the conversation or force a laugh. He simply belongs, and people can feel it. You'll notice it in the way others naturally gravitate toward him. Not because he's loud, but because he reads the room like a symphony. He knows when to listen, when to speak, and when silence says more than words. His presence creates ease. People feel lighter around him, not because he tries hard, but because he's tuned in. And even if a woman can't quite explain why she's drawn to him, some deeper part of her instinct, intuition tells her, this man is safe. This man is real, and he won't be easily forgotten. You see, sociability in a man isn't about being the loudest in the room or the most entertaining. It's not about performance. It's about emotional availability, especially in social settings. A man who can read people, who can connect with authenticity, who can adapt his energy without losing himself, signals something powerful. He belongs. And from an evolutionary lens, that matters. A man accepted by his tribe isn't just likable. He's trusted, he's respected, he's been vetted by others. And to a woman's subconscious mind, that is a green light. Because when others laugh with you, lean on you, seek your presence, it's more than social approval. It's social proof. It says you know how to navigate the world, that you're not isolated, that people don't just tolerate your presence, they value it. That you're not trying to impress everyone, yet somehow you earn their admiration anyway. This kind of influence isn't loud, but it's lasting. It answers the question she may never ask aloud. If I trust him, will I be safe? Will I be understood? Will I be valued? A man with strong, healthy connections who shows up with consistency and answers that question without needing to say a word. But let's be clear, building this kind of presence takes more than clever lines or confidence tricks. It takes real communication, not the scripted kind, but the kind that sees people. It's in how you ask questions with intent, how you remember someone's name without being told twice, how you look a person in the eye and make them feel they matter. It's your ability to listen, to pause, to respond with presensano just to wait for your turn to speak. And yes, humor helps. But not the kind you rehearse, the kind that flows from awareness. The quick wit that shows you're paying attention, not just performing. That spark of timing that tells people you're alive to the moment. You don't have to be the loudest guy at the table. You don't have to light up every room. But if you can build real friendships, if you cultivate a strong circle, and you show up for people when it counts, your presence will echo. Because influence isn't about spotlight. It's about steadiness. It's about showing up the same way whether someone's watching or not. And when a woman sees that consistency, that calm strength, that earned trust from others. She doesn't just see you. She begins to believe in you. Part 3. Mental leadership. Because here's the truth. When a man earns the trust of others, he instantly becomes the man she is curious about. And in relationships, curiosity is never casual. It's the first spark, the quiet beginning of something deeper. And what often fuels that spark is mental leadership, a quality rooted in self-confidence, inner power, and deep personal trust. Long before a man speaks, a woman is already reading the unspoken. She sees it in how he steps into a room, how he carries himself, how his gaze meets hers not with desperate hunger or need but with grounded clarity. He's not asking for approval, he already has his own. And that's the subtle but magnetic difference. This presence, it isn't arrogance. It's not swagger or overcompensation. It's inner alignment. And that, more than anything, draws her in. Because a man who trusts himself first before expecting anyone else toys rare. And in that rarity lies quiet power. Confidence, when it's real, doesn't scream. It doesn't flex. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply exists like the eye of the storm, steady, focused, unshaken. It's not about being the loudest. It's about being the most secure internally. You can feel it in his tone, steady, not sharp. You can see it in his pace, unrushed yet deliberate. You notice it in the way he listens, not just to reply, but to understand. He's not performing, he's present, and that presence becomes a mirror. It reflects not who he's trying to be, but who he already is. And what does that create? Safety. Not just physical safety, but something even more valuable, emotional safety. The kind of steadiness that allows a woman to breathe deeper. The kind of groundedness that says, you don't have to carry everything here. I've got my side handled. It's subtle, but profound. Because in a world that moves too fast, where many men react out of fear or ego, a man who leads with inner trust becomes a sanctuary. And here's the key. That kind of man isn't born. He's built. He's built in private, through small promises kept to himself, through mornings where discipline wins over distraction, through moments where he chooses patience over impulse, through decisions where he responds rather than reacts. He becomes that man by practicing stillness, not by chasing noise. He doesn't need the crowd to feel valuable. He knows his worth before the world confirms it. And that, right there, is emotional independence. It's not apathy. It's not detachment. It means you care deeply but without losing your center. You're whole, even when you stand alone. Women don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with presence. The man who moves without rushing, speaks with conviction, decides with clarity, and stays grounded when everyone else is spinning becomes unforgettable. Not because he's trying to be, but because he's the calm in a storm the world didn't realize it was craving. Part 4. Respect and boundaries. And remember, this stillness is the birthplace of trust. When a man believes in himself deeply, she doesn't have to second-guess him. He doesn't need to declare his confidence out loud, because it's already embedded in how he moves, how he chooses, how he stands firm when others fold. True confidence isn't a costume you wear for the world. It's the way you walk when no one's watching. And when it's real, when it's lived, not performed, she feels it before you even speak. This leads us to a deeper layer of attraction. Leadership. And not the loud chest-thumping kind. We're talking about the kind of leadership rooted in clarity, conviction, and quiet direction. Leadership that's not obsessed with being in charge, but focused on being in alignment. Because every relationship, whether spoken or not, is a rhythm. And when a man steps up and moves with confidence, that rhythm flows. But when he hesitates, that rhythm breaks. Everything slows. Everything tenses. See, leadership in love isn't about domination. It's not about calling the shots. It's about being the man who knows the terrain, who senses the weather changing, and still walks forward not recklessly, but with awareness. Especially in moments of uncertainty, your calm becomes her clarity. Because here's the truth. A strong woman doesn't want to lead everything. Yes, she may be independent, accomplished, and more than capable. But in her deepest truth, she doesn't want to carry the whole weight. She longs for someone who isn't afraid to share it. Someone who doesn't add pressure but absorbs it. A man who makes clear decisions not just for himself, but with her in mind. And no, she's not asking for a savior. She's not looking for someone to take over her life. What she wants is simply a man who knows where he's going and isn't afraid to invite her into the journey. And you see this not in grand gestures, but in the small things. It's in how you choose the restaurant without nervously asking, "What do you want?" 5 times. It's in how you set the plan for the day clear, simple, intentional, without outsourcing every decision to her. It's in how you sense her emotional shifts and lean in with presence instead of avoidance. And these moments, they're not random. They're markers, clues. They point to something deeper. Your ability to carry the moment with grounded masculine energy. And women feel that. They respond to that. Not because they're weak, but because they're tired of being the only one holding everything up. This is the hidden power of masculine leadership. It doesn't rush. It doesn't waffle. It decides. And then adjusts not to please, but to improve. It takes responsibility for the energy in the room. It speaks clearly. It acts with intent. And when a woman sees that, she exhales. Because now, she doesn't have to be on guard. She doesn't have to manage the energy or take over the emotional weight. She can soften. She can rest. She can just be. Understand this. A woman cannot fully relax in uncertainty. If you hesitate, she will fill the space. Not because she wants to, but because she has to. But if you lead with steadiness, if you walk with clarity, she leans in it just because you're strong, but because you make her feel safe. And real safety isn't built from sweet words or long explanations. It's built from presence, from the way you move when pressure rises, from the way you stand your ground when decisions need to be made, from the way your energy remains centered even when life doesn't. That's the kind of leadership that makes a woman trust you not just for a night, but for a future. Not because you controlled her, but because you led yourself. Part 5. Emotional intelligence. The magnetic power of purpose. It's not about perfection. It never was. What truly holds a woman's attention, what earns her quiet admiration is presence with purpose. A man who walks through life not as a wanderer, but as a warrior of intention. 5. Purpose. Life mission and long-term vision. There's something quietly electrifying about a man who knows where he's going. He might not be the richest man in the room. He might not command headlines. But when he speaks, there's direction. When he moves, there's intent. He's not chasing dopamine. He's chasing destiny. And that, whether women can articulate it or notice, irresistibly attractive. Because deep down, we're all drawn to energy that feels anchored. And a man with purpose, he isn't floating through life hoping something good happens. He's building something that matters. Every day, every choice, Every sacrifice sites, all rooted in a vision larger than himself. He wakes up not because the alarm clock tells him to, but because his mission calls him forward. He doesn't live for the weekend. He lives for the work, the impact, the why. That kind of man doesn't need to sell himself. His presence does the talking. His direction is magnetic because it speaks to depth, ambition, and inner drive. And here's the Stoic truth. Real purpose is never loud. It doesn't boast. It doesn't perform. It builds, quietly, consistently, day after day, like the chisel against stone, crafting legacy through repetition and resilience. This is what separates a man who merely exists from one who creates. Because having a dream is not enough. Wanting more is not enough. True purpose requires clarity. It asks you to define what you stand for, what you're willing to sacrifice for, what kind of life you'll no longer tolerate. Without that clarity, most men drift from job to job, woman to woman, moment to moment, never anchoring to anything deeper. But a man with a vision, he becomes rooted. He moves differently. He doesn't flinch when things get hard because he's not just chasing pleasure, he's building meaning. And meaning, my friend, is power. When a woman sees a man on a mission, she feels it, even if she can't explain it. His energy feels grounded. His presence feels rare. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's too busy becoming something that can't be ignored. So how do you build this? It starts with the hard questions. Not surface-level goals, but the soul-level vision. Ask yourself, what do I want my life to stand for? What's the legacy I want to leave when I'm gone? What pain am I willing to endure for something that actually matters? Whether it's building a business, protecting your family, elevating your community, or mastering yourself, the form doesn't matter. The fire does. Because comfort doesn't transform men. Purpose does. Comfort might feel good now, but it leaves you hollow later. Purpose, on the other hand, forges a man into something unforgettable. It gives your life shape, weight, and gravity. And in a world full of men chasing quick highs, you become the rare one, the grounded one. And here's the truth. Women don't just want a man who wins. They want a man who means something. A man who wakes up each morning with a reason. A man whose path isn't built to impress, but to impact. When you live with intention, you become the man others look to in chaos. The man others believe in. The man she wants to stand beside, not because of what you have, but because of who you are becoming. Part 6. Integrity and emotional depth. Calm is the new power. Purpose is not just a checklist of goals or a vision board filled with ambition. It is the soul of a man who has chosen to sacrifice comfort in pursuit of something greater than himself. And that kind of man, he doesn't just inspire, he leaves an imprint. 6. Emotional stability, calmness, and self-control. In a world that thrives on chaos, outrage, and emotional outbursts, calm has become a rare and magnetic force. A man who can remain centered when everything around him spirals. A man who stands out. Not because he suppresses emotion, but because he masters it. You see, emotional composure isn't about being detached. It's not about being cold, distant, or robotic. It's about maturity. The ability to feel deeply without being dominated by what you feel. And for women, that grounded emotional presence isn't just attractive, it's essential. When she's with a man who doesn't flinch in discomfort, who doesn't explode when misunderstood, who doesn't crumble under pressure, her body relaxes, her heart softens, because she senses something rare, safety. Not the kind built from physical strength, but the kind rooted in inner discipline. This is where trust begins, not in what you say, but in how you hold yourself when things go sideways. True emotional stability shows up when plans fall apart and you're still composed. When she's upset and instead of escalating, you listen. When a storm brews and you remain anchored. That's when she knows, consciously or not, that she can rely on you. Because here's the truth most men miss. She doesn't need you to solve every problem. She needs to know you won't become the problem when emotions run high. Stoicism gives us a powerful compass in this terrain, not as a cold rejection of emotion, but as a guide to clarity. When a Stoic faces conflict, he doesn't suppress his feeling, she observes them. He asks, "Is this within my control?" If not, he releases it. If yes, he responds intentionally, not impulsively. Emotional depth begins with this space, the pause, the breath before the reaction, the ability to choose how you respond instead of being dragged around by your mood. And like all mastery, it's a practice. It starts with small moments, not interrupting when you're irritated, breathing instead of lashing out, owning your tone when it sharpens, choosing curiosity over defensiveness. These aren't grand gestures, but they are the bricks of trust, and over time they build something unshakable. Because emotional control isn't about one heroic moment. It's about consistency. It's about showing up steady day after day, whether things are going your way or falling apart. And it's in that daily presence that a woman finds something she can build with, not just feel drawn to. Remember this: a man who can master his internal storms doesn't need to dominate a room to be powerful. His stillness is the power. His self-control is the attraction. And his emotional integrity, that daily choice to respond with depth, not egoist, what makes him unforgettable. Women crave emotional connection, yes. But that connection can only thrive on the foundation of stability. She needs to know she can lean on you without wondering if you'll collapse. She needs to know that when life shakes you, you'll bend but not break. When you become this man, you don't just attract love, you build love that lasts. Because your steadiness becomes her safety, your depth becomes her peace, and your discipline becomes the quiet strength that carries both of you through whatever comes next. Part 7. The strategy of self-improvement. Build the man first. A calm presence in a world of noise doesn't just soothe, it anchors. And in the chaos of modern life, that anchoring force becomes irresistible. But here's the truth. No man arrives at that state by accident. It's earned. And it begins with one of the most misunderstood principles in attraction self-improvement. Because when it comes to attracting the right woman and building something real, self-improvement isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. It's tempting to believe that the secret lies in external polish, the right outfit, the nice watch, the curated photos. But all of that, it's just surface. The kind of attraction that lasts starts beneath all that. It's forged in the fire of discipline, built on the foundation of self-respect, and revealed through the quiet confidence of a man who's done the work. Becoming a high-value man isn't about chasing perfection. It's about relentlessly pursuing progress, and it begins with the one person you're guaranteed to live with for the rest of your life: yourself. Start with your finances, not for the flash, not to impress, but because financial strength gives you freedom. It's not about flexing, it's about knowing that if everything collapsed, you'd still stand. That's the kind of independence that makes a woman feel secure, not because she needs your money, but because she can trust your foundation. It shows you're a builder, that you can create order in a chaotic world, that you're not a man who relies on luck, you rely on your preparation. Then, turn to your body. Physical fitness isn't about six-pack abs. It's about discipline. A man who trains consistently even when no one's watching signals something powerful. I care about my well-being. I don't neglect myself. I push myself. That quiet consistency speaks louder than words ever could. And the result? It radiates in your posture, your energy, your presence. A strong body tells a woman, I can endure, I can protect, I take responsibility for myself. Next, style and grooming. Again, not for vanity, but for self-respect. A man who takes pride in how he presents himself tells the world, I pay attention. I'm not careless. I value the details. That awareness is magnetic. Because when a woman sees that you care for yourself, she doesn't have to wonder whether you'll care for her. But the core of all this? Communication? All the discipline in the world won't matter if you can't connect. If you can't express yourself clearly, if you can't listen deeply, if your presence doesn't make someone feel seen, then attraction will always remain shallow. A high-value man knows how to speak and even more, how to listen. He asks the questions that matter. He hears between the lines. He knows when to lead a conversation with clarity and when to hold space in silence. This is what builds emotional intimacy. This is what makes her feel like she's home, not just in your arms, but in your mind. And real leadership isn't just for CEOs or entrepreneurs. It's how you move through every area of your life. When you lead with integrity, when you show initiative in the relationship, when you make thoughtful decisions without hesitation, that's when she starts to relax into your presence. Because leadership at its core is a promise. I've got this. And when she feels that, she no longer has to carry everything alone. In the end, it's not about being flawless. It's about being focused. It's not about impressing every woman. It's about becoming the man who doesn't need to impress anyone. So forget chasing attention. Forget trying to fake high value. Instead, become the kind of man who doesn't just attract the elevates. A man whose energy makes others want to rise. A man who doesn't need to explain his worth because his presence already speaks for him. Conclusion: it's not about money, it's about mastery. Women are drawn to men who stand tall, not just in posture, but in purpose. A man who moves with intention, speaks with clarity, and lives with direction. It's never been about perfection. It's always been about progress. Because when you commit to becoming better, not just richer, but wiser, stronger, more grounded, you naturally draw in the kind of woman who values something deeper. So let's be clear. The belief that women only care about money, that's not just outdated, it's a distraction. It misleads men into chasing symbols instead of substance. Yes, financial stability has its place. It reflects responsibility, but it's not what holds her gaze or earns her respect. What truly captivates a woman, what builds lasting desire are traits woven into the fabric of what it means to be a grounded man. Quiet confidence, steady leadership, natural social influence, a sense of mission, and emotional control. These are not luxuries, they are essentials. And none of them require wealth. They require work. They require you to show up every day with the intention to grow. Because when a man walks with strength not to dominate, but to support when he leads without needing to control, and when he listens without trying to impress, he becomes rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. This kind of presence doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it draws in, naturally, instinctively, and it tells her something no bank account ever could. I am safe with this man. So wherever you are in your journey, remember this. Every small act of self-mastery adds up. Every moment you choose discipline over comfort, integrity over image, purpose over pleasure. These are the bricks that build a man worth following, a man she remembers, a man she respects. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be real, grounded, growing, becoming. So here's the question I leave you with today. What's one trait you're actively working on right now? And how has it reshaped your relationships or even your view of yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the spark that helps another man start his. If this message resonated with you, if it gave you clarity or challenged you to level up, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. This channel exists for men like you, men on the path, men who choose growth over comfort. And remember, becoming a high-value man isn't about what you have. It's about who you're becoming. Until next time, live stoic, live strong.